episode of Gov Tech Today. I'm Russell Lowery.
And I'm Jen Saha.
And together we try and bridge the gap between .com and .gov. Both .com and our .gov listeners will be familiar with transitions. Things change at the top and things change. In California government, that can be extreme with the change of administration. And we have one of those situations coming up. We don't know who's going to win at the time of this recording. Who is going to be California's next governor is very much in doubt. But what isn't in doubt is the next governor will have thousands of appointments to make. So I want to tap into your expertise a little bit. You were a gubernatorial appointee. What is going through the minds of the .gov person who is in their seat today, and that seat is at the pleasure of the governor?
Nothing's guaranteed. That's what everyone is sort of thinking. For the most part, when you do get a new governor, if it's the same party, you can petition to keep your job, right? You're like, I'm doing a great job. Here's everything I've accomplished. I would like to continue doing this. And that happens a lot. We don't see massive, massive turnover when governor from the same party comes in, because presumably you're going to have very similar priorities and how you want to govern the state and initiatives.
Well, that sounds right, but I know that the administration looked very different from Governor Brown to Governor Newsom.
Right.
And they were the same party, similar disposition, but you had different agency heads. You had different. So if I'm at the head of an agency and I'd like to stick around, am I looking at the gubernatorial candidates? Am I trying to meet them?
Yes. And that's the problem with this election in California is we're not sure who the next gubernatorial candidate will be. If you worked for Governor Brown and you wanted to work for Governor Newsom, everyone knew it was going to be Governor Newsom. So you were positioning with his team ahead of time. You were talking to transition offices to sort of put your stake in the ground of, hey, I would like to be considered and I would like to stay. It's a little chaotic in California right now. And I think we're also in a very unique place with a governor who's presumably running for president. Nothing's been declared yet, but I think everyone is sort of aligning in that direction. And we have some transitions happening now, happening 9 months before an election, especially when it comes to the technology lineup in California government.
Well, I want to talk about that. It's just it's a helpful example. It's not directly related to the transition, but a giant in technology, Liana Bailey Crimmins,
previous guest on the podcast,
on the podcast, and announced her leaving and departing state service. That leaves a giant hole.
Sure.
All the network of relationships that she had, all the problems that she solved, I think of it as transactional friction. How many conversations I was a part of where it ended because Liana said, we're good.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know exactly what it meant, but because she said it was good, people left that and they worked on the other parts of it. But that part was good because you could trust that if she said it was good, it was good. What does that kind of departure mean? How does that play out, like in the vendor community, for instance?
So a lot of it is we're sort of entering a lame duck territory already. And when you have a department head, a statewide chief information officer depart, there's a couple of questions. Number one, who is going to take that job for what is only guaranteed to be 9 months until we get a new governor? And that new governor could very well say, doing a great job, but I want my own guy. And that's what happens in a lot of these high-level positions, like the Jerry Brown to Gavin Newsom transition. It was like, nobody's messing anything up, but I want my own team. So I think whoever takes that job, and we do have a new state CIO, has to sort of be looking at this as, I've got 9 months to really prove myself. If he does, in fact, want to keep this job into the next administration. I know he's got some super big ambitions and a lot to accomplish in his short tenure before we have a new governor. And he's hit the ground running. He really is. I think right now, as we're filming, he's sort of drinking from a fire hose, but we have extended an invite to him. I do think once he gets his head above water, he's planning to come in and have some discussions with us.
That'll be helpful.
And I think he really does have a very narrow focus of 2 to 3 things that he wants to get done to sort of prove himself in his short, but hopefully not short, if he wants to stick around, sort of timeline here.
And I think it's important as we're looking ahead to the next and the transition that we emphasize. The governor and his team are pushing and saying, I'm still governor and I'm going to ride this thing to the very end.
Well, especially because this isn't the end for him, right? If he wants to be president, he needs to take advantage of every single day in office in California to prove himself as an incredible leader.
I'm working on a significant, and one of our clients working on a significant regulatory reform package that's important to the governor, has the governor's eyes on it, and it's amazing how smoothly things can run when the big guy is saying, I want this done. It still matters. So don't want to lose sight of that. But help me understand, help the audience better understand. So with what does it mean that someone like Liana is not there? Like, what does that matter on a day-to-day procurement, on getting projects approved, implemented, policy driven? How does it manifest itself in any of those processes?
So I think no one person is so important in government that if they are removed, everything should stop and halt. And that holds true for, in my mind, any department, right? You have your lieutenants there that are going to carry on and continue to do what that department has done for hundreds of years.
Right.
And so Liana did have a great leadership team that is keeping the train on the tracks.
Okay.
Do I think we're going to have any, major new things? Certainly. Like Chris Given is going to come in and say, here's my priorities, and these might be different from what Liana's priorities are. And here's what we're going to focus on as a team now. But that underlying operational, here's what the department has always done and will continue to do, has to get done. I mean, they are an essential operation to state government. So they will continue the work. I think what becomes difficult is when the staff fallout happens too.
Right.
There were a lot of people that were working there because Liana was working there.
She's my mentor. I had the opportunity
to
go
her here. Yeah, right. And those people were great at their jobs. Some of them don't want to stick around for a new leader. And we have already seen those people move on to other opportunities. And I think it's going to get worse. Maybe Chris has some lieutenants that he wants to bring in, and that would be great. But all of these changes are not easy and take time. Every time a new CIO or someone starts in a new position, it's, give them a couple of months to sort of figure out what their job is and what they're doing. And frankly, we don't have a couple of months. We have to hit the ground running right now. And so Chris has sort of the challenge of drinking from that fire hose, figuring out what he's going to do, filling a bunch of vacancies, which is difficult to do in short time frames, and then all while keeping the train on the tracks and figuring out who in your organization knows what they're doing and maybe who doesn't.
I think helpful for some of our audience, they're going to be familiar with the agency secretary and maybe the director of a department or something like that. Why don't you explain for the audience what a career executive is? What is a CEA, A, B? What is that system?
So those are sort of the layers down in government. So you do have a level of appointees at every department. Those are typically your director, your chief deputy, probably your chief counsel. These are political appointments. And they frame out your leadership team. Those are the appointees, the governor appointees. He picks you. It is at his pleasure that you are serving at that department. A layer under that is a career executive assignment, a CEA. These are also at the pleasure, but they're at the pleasure of the director of that department, whoever that might be. Every department has these positions. You interview for them, you apply for them, and it is just a level below. You are considered a civil servant
This is
in those
a
positions.
fundamental difference for the civil servant. This kind of civil servant position that you mentioned is at will. So most civil servants, the vast majority, have the civil service protections. They're not at-will employees. They have extraordinary protections, and it's a very secure job. That's not the case for a CEA. So walk through that again,
Yep.
that important distinction.
A CEA is a civil servant by classification, but you do not have that protected status that you do as a traditional civil servant. So you are serving at the pleasure. They do have to have cause to dismiss you from your job, but you get 20 days notice just like anyone else. So,
And what happens when you're dismissed from your job in that sense?
it depends. Do you have return rights?
Yes.
Were you promoted from somewhere else? Were you a manager with that protected civil service class
Right.
before you promoted to be a CEA? And if so, you have return rights. So you go back to your old job, whatever that was.
This is I think this is a picture that would be completely foreign to our private sector person. So imagine this: you're a senior manager at a department or agency. You apply for a CEA position with a director. You get promoted, and now you're one level above where you were, but you have return rights. The new director comes in and says, "You're not my person. I don't think you're doing a good job. I'm going to demote you. I'm going to fire you from your job, and I'm going to hire someone else." But you're not gone. You're
You go
now
back to that old job.
that old job, which might be a senior member in a leadership role. Often it's
yeah.
a senior leadership role. You don't generally go from low level administrative assistant to CEA.
Right.
So why would some civil servants, they refer to CEA as career-ending assignments? It's because of that loss of protection, and now you're in a more political role than you were before.
It is a little more secure than being an appointee, but it is far from being as secure as a staff services manager or an IT classification. A lot of the leadership positions around the state are in CEA classification. So many of your department chief information officers are CEAs, and there's bands within it. So like an A or a B or a C, they each pay progressively better, and they pay pretty well. So you can work in a CEA position. I also served as a CEA for a couple years while I was at the Department of General Services. And have a lot of executive responsibilities, but with great responsibility becomes great power, also great risk, right?
Right. And so all of those people also have their head on a swivel, and some of them are looking to potentially move up. It might be an opportunity for them to become a director or even an agency appointee if they have the right connections. It's been hard because these personnel is policy. Ultimately, what a governor, administration, elected officials get done is largely done through the people they put in those positions. But trying to explain that to some of my corporate clients and helping get them engaged in elevating good public servants to better positions is hard. I would say, at least in my role, half of my conversations are more along the career positioning, conversational type of thing than the technology piece. Like they're, but positioning good people to get into good roles is a key part of I think of what I do. How do you think about that when during this time of transition?
I love the personnel is policy because you're right. Everyone can have a different read of the same exact line of government code or law or terms and conditions and interpret it a completely different way. I'm dealing with this with a client right now where they've had a contract in place for a long time and everything was fine with that. Everyone signed off on it. But now there's a new chief counsel in town and this chief counsel is asking a bunch of questions. And it's like, this was fine for the same exact department, for the same exact laws. And now we're questioning these things. And you're right. People make or break these policies that are in place. And on top of that, people have their own priorities and want to put new policies in place. So navigating it is difficult. I think right now we are in a period of time where we have a new budget rolling out. We have a lot of initiatives that we're still working on towards the end of the administration. I don't get particularly nervous about a change in an administration, and maybe it's the optimist in me. I always look at it as an opportunity to make some new friends, to learn some new policies, to have some fresh blood, to see new ways of doing things. But it is a lot to navigate, and I think many of the clients that I'm working with right now are sort of in that wait and see kind of time frame.
I have the picture I like to give as we're all navigating it. You can have the picture, a vulture and an eagle are very successful carnivore birds. And there are vultures who are sitting around watching and scanning and ready to pounce when things settle. And then there's the eagle who's looking to go kill something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm firmly in the camp of taking advantage of the transition to say, these people have been responsive, helpful, are in good positions, and how do we make sure that those people get elevated instead of waiting to see if they land in good spots?
Yep.
How do I make sure that sort of they got their list of accomplishments ready, work with them so that
help me help you
help
kind
me
of
help you.
mindset.
This is how this works, and we all have relationships where they're asking who are good people. And if you don't have a good answer to that question, you've missed a golden opportunity. And so at minimum, I think people should be prepared for that question. Do you know anybody who's thought deeply about this and would be good at this? Just have a few people that you can email around that maybe you can elevate. Contact them and let them know you don't want to, but having those relationships, I think, can and turn a potentially stressful transition into a real opportunity for people.
I think also paying attention to that layer below the CEAs.
Okay.
Those guys that are managers, they're civil servants, they're supervisors, they're the people who are going to be there next year and probably the year after and the year after. Those are the doers in an organization. A lot of times when I reach out to a CEA or even an appointee, I'm like, I know you're busy. I don't need your time. I need the guy that's working on X. And oftentimes those guys that are working on that are going to be the same guys working on that come January of next year. And so
it's a great point.
Establishing those relationships at that middle management level is incredibly important. And give it 5 years. Those are going to be your CEAs. Those are going to be your chief information officers. Those are going to be your department directors. And that's how you grow your relationships, is figuring out who those leaders are that are going to be the next generation of executives.
That's a really valuable 2 minutes. We'll make sure and clip that and maybe create a little clip, but everybody can benefit from that. Well, thanks for guiding us through this transition time, and I hope it works out for you.
Fingers crossed, right?
All right.